It is Sunday and it's race day for the Mexican Grand Prix, the first Mexican Grand Prix since 1992. I'm Jawad Yakub as always, joined by Baden Westerweller, and it's exciting seeing such a historic track back on the calendar and being such a huge success so far. We haven't even seen the race yet, but it's been a huge success, we can see.
Oh, absolutely. It's been well received by all parties, the drivers and the team personnel, and not least the locals. It's been a long time coming. It's steeped in a lot of history. We saw some infamous events in its former iteration. Of course, Nigel Mansell is the most recent winner in 1992, and now we're back, and the man himself is present as well, and with that has come a lot of hype too.
Yeah, very much so. Mansell present, and of course, we've emphasised greatly about the honour he was given of having the final part of the Peril Tartar corner named after him, Mansell Corner at turn 17. But it's good to see this weekend. We haven't seen weather affect proceedings as we did the previous weekend in Austin, and as a result, we've had some pretty interesting running. A lot of learning of the track as it is normally when you go to a new circuit, and a lot of people were surprised that some of the lap times are slower than initially predicted, but I guess that comes down to the tyres and also how far the teams are willing to go on their first attempts at this circuit.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I did read Fernando Alonso saying you can't really judge this venue until probably next season at the earliest, just while everyone heads into the. It's understandably, especially with the alterations to that middle section, the Peril Tartar, which is through that baseball component of the track. It's certainly got its tricky aspects, and cars running wide and such, and as the track's a bit greasy, these kind of things are going to happen. So probably another year, we'll probably see lap times dropping by a second or two or more.
Very much so, and as I said the other day, on F1 2015, I set a lap time in around I think the mid 119s, and that was only just beaten by Nico Rosberg's pole position lap. And yes, indeed, Rosberg claiming a fourth consecutive pole of the season, and that completed a 13th front row lockout for the Mercedes AMG team. Lewis Hamilton qualifying second place, so bit of friction in between those two since last weekend, since Hamilton wrapped up the title in Austin. We'll discuss a bit more of that after we wrap qualifying. But yeah, it was a 13th front row lockout for Mercedes. Then we've got Sebastian Vettel, third fastest for Ferrari, which was a bit of a surprise when we saw Red Bull so strong in the early part of the weekend. But they line up fourth and fifth with Danny Kvyat leading his Aussie teammate and Daniel Ricciardo. Then you've got both the Williams of Valtteri Bottas and Felipe Massa, who seem a little disappointed that although this is a power circuit, it hasn't really suited their car much with the tricky middle sector as well. Got Max Verstappen in an 8th position. Good job from the young Toro Rosso driver. Then the two Force Indias with Sergio Perez, who's had a lot of hype around this weekend, a lot of support from his the local fans. But you have to say it was a bit disappointing for Force India to get the Q3 running wrong when the track conditions were at their best. They didn't go out. They decided to go out at the end, so they lost out in a sense.
Well, not least the local boy there, Checo Serge Perez. He really had the full backing of his compatriots there, and ultimately they locked out the bottom row of that top 10.
Yeah, but he has been faster than his teammate Hulkenberg all weekend, which is good to see. And a lot of people are, claiming that this is the form of his life at the moment. We're seeing from Sergio Perez. He's had some good momentum. We saw he had the podium in Sochi and then the 5th place in Austin a week ago, and really is a strong chance that he'll get another top 5 finish this weekend here at his home Grand Prix. And
on India quickly, we should mention there's quite strong rumours doing the rounds of a bit of a tie-up with a very well-known car mark for next season, which could propel them further up the grid if they have the right backing in place.
Very much so, and we'll have heard rumours and whisperings about Aston Martin potentially coming in and taking control of Force India. That won't mean that there'll be a factory team as such. They'll still have Mercedes power. It's more of a sponsorship, title sponsorship change. And I remember yesterday when you were the first one to tell me about this, I couldn't believe it, and I thought you were playing an April Fool's joke on me for a bit until I saw the news there. So very interesting. This thing just is sort of emerged out of the blue almost.
It's certainly something we'll discuss more on the Wednesday, but it has come a bit out of the blue. We did hear earlier in the year that there was this notion that Aston Martin would tie up with, say, a Red Bull or even Williams, so that this idea that it's going to end up being a collaboration with Force India, it's certainly caught a few people unawares.
And Force India are very much a team on the up. Ever since they introduced their B-Spec car this season, they have been quite competitive. Just a few inconsistencies have seen them not score points. A few issues with Nico Hulkenberg, obviously missing out on a number of occasions. But it was interesting hearing Vijay Mallya, the team principal, say yesterday that if they had this B-Spec car ready at the start of the season, then they could have been in closer competition with Red Bull for fourth in the Constructors' Championship. So, in a sense, it's a bit of a disappointment to see Force India see where they were at the start of the season, but they really have turned things around with this B-Spec car, and the onus is really on whether they can hit the ground running for 2016 and continue that consistency for the entire season. But we'll move it on. Outside the top 10, unlucky to get into the 10 was Carlos Sainz for Toro Rosso. Then we've got the two Lotus cars led by Roman Grosjean. Then Pastor Maldonado. Grosjean has seemingly trounced his teammate in qualifying this season. That's been a bit of a walkover between the two Lotus teammates. And we learned last week that Maldonado next year will be joined by GP2 champion Jolyon Palmer for 2016 at the Enstone team. Still no news yet as to what's happening with that team in the future. Perhaps some people have suggested that it could be because Dietrich, they're still waiting on Dietrich Mateschitz to make a decision about Red Bull and whether they want to keep using Renault engines for 2016 or not. So that's why Renault are still in the lurch there with Enstone. Then we have Sauber's Marcus Ericsson, 14th. Kimi Raikkonen, who had a bit of a problematic Saturday, had an engine blowout during the early part of free practice 3. The team really did a good job, put the car back together for qualifying, but he didn't last very long. He had some brake problems and qualified 15th, but he'll take a 5-place grid penalty for a change of gearbox as a result of that engine blowout. And Kimi, he on the radio, we don't really hear this a lot from him, but he was quite grateful to his team. He thanked them all for getting the car ready for qualifying, and albeit he's going to be starting from near the back of the grid, it was good to see the Finn appreciate his team's efforts.
Oh, absolutely. It really has been a campaign to forget it. So it's only gotten worse as the season's worn on for him. And he's bound to have his luck change at some point. Clearly, we're 3 races out from the end of the year. So it's just a matter of getting there in decent shape. And it is good to see that he's recognising that it's equally not the fault of the pit crew there and whatnot. Clearly, they try as hard and they're just as frustrated. And Sebastian Vettel's the one who's been enjoying all the luck. So at some point, it would be nice to see their collective efforts rewarded on the other side of the garage.
Very much so, and that's the only way they're going to win a Constructors' Championship as well, if both cars are, as we've seen with Mercedes over the past 2 years almost, that both cars finishing 1 and 2 were on the podium consistently. That's how they'll get the points. But moving it on, Fernando Alonso, the first of the McLarens, in 16th, but both McLarens this weekend will be taking more grid penalties. Alonso, the lesser, will with 15 places for just changing the internal combustion unit. So he'll drop to, we'll discuss the penalties and the grid order in a sec. Then we've got Felipe Nasr in the Sauber, 17th. Alexander Rossi in the Manor Ferrari, out-qualifying his teammate Will Stevens again. So I think, yeah, they've done a good job. Alexander Rossi's done a good job ever since he made his debut in Singapore. And Jenson Button, poor old Jenson Button, didn't even get to make it out in qualifying after a ERS issue on his McLaren curtailed much of the progress in practice 3. And then, yeah, the same issue led on into qualifying. And he will take, and don't think this is an April Fool's joke, he will take a 70-place grid penalty He's already starting from the back of the grid, but when you see these numbers, it's pretty ridiculous. So 70 places for Jensen Button, and that's as a result of changing, I think, two complete power units and then various other bits on the car. Probably won't even, it's no point detailing it, but yeah, Jensen Button will be starting at the back of the grid with
Well,
70 places.
look at it, it's peanuts though when you compare it to how it was. It wasn't Austria where he had something like 105 position penalties.
Something like that. It's been quite ridiculous all season that we've seen uh, just how many penalties. Just because I guess you understand it's in the regulations and they have to tally it up, blah blah blah. But yeah, to see it consistently, it is quite depressing in that regard. But we'll look at the grid now, the way it's formed with the penalties. So Kimi Raikkonen will be 18th on the grid, Fernando Alonso 19th, and Jensen Button, technically, for not setting a time in qualifying, he'll have to ask the stewards to race, and we assume that it'll be a yes. So he'll be starting from the back of the grid. So that's what the grid will look like. Everyone else who were above them, I know below them, would have been jumped up a few places. But yeah, Rosberg on pole position, and really the onus this week has been on what happened in Austin and the tensions that are looking set to boil over.
Well, understandably, from the Hamilton camp, he's wrapped up his title, so he's really just walking on the clouds at the moment. And these kind of issues from Rosberg's end, clearly he's aggrieved there. He sees that as costing him that chance to continue the fight this weekend and beyond. And from Mercedes, they've really themselves, they keep saying that they're going to address it with these cooling of the air talks, but it seems as though at this point now they've wrapped up both titles. Whatever happens, let it be. There's no real long-term effects going to come other than the continued deterioration of this relationship between Hamilton and Rosberg, who are erstwhile great mates.
Yeah, very much so. And we heard after the Austin race that Rosberg had lobbied for talks to take place between himself, Hamilton, and the team altogether, which the team, in a sense, rebuked. They said that there was no need to sit down all together and talk, rather they would just talk as individuals. Does it go to show that the team is, or is it fair to say that the team seem to be on one driver's side at the moment and not really giving the other guy any support?
It's been really ever since that. It's always very easy to bring up Spa 2014. That really has become a flashpoint, though. At that time, both drivers had a very much a 50-50 split of that the backing from the personnel there. But ever since then, just with each weekend, as Hamilton continues to assert his authority there, very much as though Rosberg's the one pushing weight uphill to really gain that support, and he has to be genuinely aggrieved to the point where it's detrimental to the entire operation as a result of whatever incident might have occurred. Otherwise, they just pretty much say, well, sort it out yourselves, lads. We don't want to have any real direct sanctioning authority lumped on us. We've got other things to worry about.
Yeah, that's true. And I know it's a bit too early to be talking about 2016 as such, but do you reckon team harmony will boil over next season? I mean, I brought this up on Wednesday saying that, what if the situation becomes as toxic as it was in 1989 between Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna and McLaren, or even 2013 between Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel after the infamous multi-21 saga at Malaysia?
Well, as we saw, it was no deterrent to the man who went on to win the title that season, Sebastian Vettel 2013. It's a similar case for Lewis Hamilton. He really does seem to just be on that next step right now, regardless of the Saturday results. We've seen Nico Rosberg really getting the upper hand as he did so often last season. But on the Sunday, for whatever reason, he botches it off the line, or there's some mechanical issue which drops him right back. And from there on,
Or
Lewis is.
he's made his own mistakes too.
So it's all really words and bluster. As long as on track, Rosberg's not the one there racing in lap to lap combat, and they're really just empty words. And it's all good and well for it to be made out toxic. But from Lewis Hamilton's point of view, if he's the one who's always winning every race, it's not going to have any real implication on his side.
Not at all. And we discussed on Wednesday how the front straight will represent a long drag down to the first corner, and the question is who's going to emerge. Who's going to emerge in the lead on the other side? Will it be Rosberg? Will it be Hamilton? Or as how Sebastian Vettel yesterday cheekily put it, if the two Mercedes drivers end up making love into the first corner, it could be him who emerges out into the lead. So yeah,
Oh,
it just goes.
certainly. Opportunities are galore. The next three events, it's open season from the Mercedes point of view, but clearly, if the trend does continue where Hamilton just comes from second, whether it's into turn one or the emergence from the first round of pit stops, he tends to just get the job done. And from that point on, that's a moot point for this collision notion, which is talked about so often.
And pit stops as well is going to be an important factor in this race. Obviously, having not raced here before, it'll be questionable as to how the degradation fares with the soft and medium compound tyres. And two stops would be, I guess, the maximum that people would be looking at to do. But maybe we might see somebody try a one-stop strategy, be a bit bold, and see if they can really stretch those medium tyres, which seem to be the preferred race tyres. We saw a lot of drivers not using their medium tyres during qualifying and saving them for the race. So perhaps we might see them try to one-stop with those medium tyres, or at the very most two-stop.
Certainly at this point of the campaign for everybody, they've got nothing to lose now that both titles are out of the question. Now for Ferrari as well, they're the ones who can run these ultimate strategies, and if it comes off, very good. If not, then oh well. The attention's already fixed on 2016, and for the fans, I'm sure in Mexico, they'd be really happy to see some bold strategies taking place there.
Very much so. And you talk about for the fans and for the whole spectacle side of things, it seems that the how the Mercedes team, seem to be fueling this battle between the two Mercedes drivers. It's something we've wanted to see all year, really. These two fighting with each other wheel to wheel, and we're only getting to see it now that the championship's over. So perhaps for next year's, it's something that the team should try and fuel it early on, so we can see both drivers fighting wheel to wheel on track. But
We
obviously,
said this
because they're
last year.
worried about their constructors' championship, we might not see it.
We said this coming into 2015 after Abu Dhabi, the way that they said how they all handled everything so professionally after the incident at Belgium, and then 2015, and really they've just been on completely different wavelengths, the two drivers, apart from the start line. So we always have these huge expectations, and it just doesn't ever seem to come to anything. And I don't know really at this point how that's going to change unless Nico Rosberg just drops the nice guy persona at last. It's taken him this long, but it's the only way he's going to have any hope of ever wresting a title whilst he's in the prime, which is probably the next 2 years, you would say maximum. If he doesn't get it right next season, he's going to be under enormous pressure to just retain that seat, much less be in a position to win titles. We see all these rumours about someone like a Max Verstappen, the next big thing. So really, it's at a point where he has to make good on pretty much not just what he's threatening, but the expectations coming from the public, what they want him to do.
And if Ferrari are in that position next year to be challenging for the title with regular race wins, then he's got to do his best to not be relegated into that position where he is the number two driver.
Oh, certainly Sebastian Vettel, as it stands, he is looming as a head-to-head shootout, and it's a mouth-watering prospect with Lewis Hamilton there, and it will be good to see really multiple outfits with drivers in contention. As good as it is an intra-team rivalry, there's just nothing like that classic showdown between two powerhouses.
All right, then I guess we'll move it on and give our final predictions then. So how do you think the top three will pan out then?
Oh, I've got a feeling the customary swapping of that the front duo there will take effect at some point. And even there, I don't know, I could see Sebastian Vettel splitting the Mercedes, but to be safe, I'm going to go the Hamilton-Rosberg-Vettel triumvirate.
And Red Bull behind them, or
Yeah. Then again, you never know with Kimi if he can get a good run, as we saw with said last weekend. It didn't hinder him too much coming from the middle of the grid, and he was in a position arguably to win that race until the multiple safety car interventions. That final one really put paid to that prospect, but he could make a charge. If not, yeah, you would assume though it'll be one of the Red Bulls or even the Williams if they can get their race pace right.
fair enough. And it's very hard, but I kind of see Rosberg getting his elbows out in this race. He's got nothing to lose now going into the final three races, and his demeanor's been a lot more aggressive since the whole the throwing of the Capgate saga at Austin. So who knows? Could we? I'm hoping it boils over and Rosberg, yeah, taking the win against Hamilton. I'm sure Hamilton won't really care now that he's got his title wrapped up in the bag. So perhaps it might be Rosberg. And yeah, as you said, the prospect of the Ferrari splitting the two Mercedes. But if Rosberg wins, I don't see Vettel finishing ahead of Hamilton. So I'd say Hamilton and Vettel for third, and Red Bull closely behind.
I'm all for that concept. If there is a bit of a biff and we do get to see someone different emerge at the front, it'd most likely be another Sebastian Vettel triumph. But until it does happen, it is hard to fathom this concept of multiple Mercedes retirements into turn one. It's been a long time coming, really. So if that does transpire, then yeah, we will be seeing fireworks.
Fireworks, and that's what everyone's been wanting to see all season long. So, yeah, I guess from me, Jawad, and Baden, thank you for joining us. We'll be back on Wednesday with our usual race wrap up, and also we'll be discussing a lot of the news from this weekend. More, as we said, the Aston Martin rumours of taking over Force India, and even Mana Marussia with two of its senior guys, and Graham Loudon and John Booth set to tender their resignations from the team. So, yeah, thank you for joining us, and I guess we're looking forward to a really exciting race, aren't we?
Oh, indeed, it does shape again as last weekend really was up there, along with Britain and Hungary, one of the races of the season. So if we've got another one here to complete that North American duo of races over consecutive weekends, we can't ask for much more.
Very much so. So thanks, guys, for joining us, and we'll see you Wednesday. Bye.